Hello friends and welcome to yet another video on Tutorialspoint with me Richa. Today under the Youth Empowerment module we will talk about overcoming fear. Well, youth may be a time wherein you are faced with a lot of fears. Those could be personal, professional, etc. Now how do you really overcome these fears and how do you deal with them is what we're going to cover in this particular module on overcoming fear. Let's take a look at the agenda. We will talk about over here fear of parents, youth violence and its effect on fear, fear of, how do you overcome the effect of fear on youth, identifying and understanding what exactly you're fearful about, and then facing your fears is what we will discuss. Understanding the fear of parents. Now, a lot of children are raised by parents who are very controlling to them. They want to make sure that everything happens according to their will and their wishes. Because of such kind of, having an environment of so much of rigidity and fear, children are also growing up in that environment because of which they become very not good in decision making, they have a lot of fear of doing everything, etc. So today's generation has been brought up in a risk-averse culture. The level of paranoia of parents about the health and safety and well-being of their children are at insane levels today. So much is happening in our society, so much is happening with the children, and we keep hearing it in news channels and read it in the papers, etc. Today's parents are more concerned about the health and safety of their youth and their children more than anything else. Most children spend most of the childhood being raised in that kind of fear and captivity, which is not really good for the overall personality development of the youth because of being brought up in an environment like that. Youngsters today have been brought up by parents who are very paranoid, parents who are control freaks, and the culture of fear, which ultimately they become rebellious because of it. Please do not blame your children, but blame the parents because of which the children become or the youth become so rebellious and they want to fight for everything. They mirror the behavior of the parents, become insecure, anxious, and they avoid in romantic relationships as well. Display people-pleasing attitude. They go all out of their way to make sure that they only put up those attitudes which people like seeing. Associate their self-worth with their restraint. So for them, the self-worth also goes down the drain because they've been brought up in an environment which is very captivating and a lot of fear which instills in them. Friends, now we're going to talk about youth violence and its effect on fear. Today, because of so much of fear that the youth is surrounded with, it also leads them to getting into activities which may be violent. They may get into things like substance abuse, going for smoking, drinking, excessive amount of inhaling of drugs, etc. All this is getting done because of so much of fear that they're living in, which is giving rise to youth getting involved in such kind of activities. When youth violence occurs, the entire community is affected because youth and children are a very important part of the society, and then the entire community also gets affected if the youth is not happy or not satisfied or is living in so much of fear around them. Young people cannot learn and succeed in life if they are afraid to go to school or college. Violence not only harms families, it also harms the businesses and other parts of a community by increasing the healthcare cost. It also leads to a lot of increase or decrease in the property values, and also disrupting services is also a part of it. So the youth is also in turn giving a lot of stress to other parts of the society because of the kind of fear that they live in. So as a humble request, it is very important for all the elders and all the businesses as well as companies to make sure that they give an absolute safe environment for youth to be brought up in. Let's take a look at what is the effect of fear on the youth of the country today. When people live in constant fear, they become incapacitated by that fear. They live in a world of their own which is only surrounded by fear, and that is also not good for their mental health as well. Fear releases hormones that can slow down or shut down the functions which are not needed for survival. It also increases the heart rate, gives us a lot of psychological as well as mental health problems because of that fear. It also weakens our immune system, our limbs stop functioning or they freeze. It also leads to a lot of damage, which could be heart attacks, angina, etc. Gastrointestinal problems could occur because of it, ulcers, irritable bowel movements, decrease in fertility, premature death can happen. Well, fear, though it is a physical thing, but the kind of issues that you go through, health problems, etc., because of that fear is very, very damaging. And also not only that, a lot of fear, because of the fear that the youth is living in, they also get into depression and retardation because of that. So it's very important for us to make sure that we give them a safe environment which will help them to bring the best out of their personality. Let's understand how do we identify our fear. So when you're growing up as a youth, as an adolescent, it's important to identify what exactly are you fearful about. So a person can find the real source of his or her own fears by doing some kind of self-evaluation or self-introspection, by spending time with one's own self, by asking certain questions of themselves. When encountering thoughts that make you fearful or anxious, it is important to identify what is the root cause of the problem. Once you understand the root cause, you are able to take the right decisions and to ultimately remove that cause from your life. Sometimes we conceal our fears or are reluctant to admit to them because we might be ashamed. I might have a fear of say insects. Now I might feel a little weird and stupid to talk about it to my friends or family members because they might think that why are you fearful of this small thing, you know. So at times, because of that fear or of being ashamed in front of people, we don't want to talk about those fears. So asking yourself a question like, what is causing me anxiety? What is causing me fear will take you in the right direction towards overcoming that particular fear. So the important question you need to ask yourself is, what am I fearful about? Why am I so anxious about it? Sometimes it also helps to talk to a professional. It could be a psychologist, it could be a counselor. Probably you might not want to approach your parents at times because of your strained relationship or conflict in relationship with your parents. But it's always good to talk to somebody who's a third party, who is not known to you, for example. Identifying our fears is the first step towards actually overcoming the fear. So first identify and ask yourself the relevant questions which will help you to overcome your fear. Also, it is important that allow yourself to sit with your fear for 2 to 3 minutes at a time. Breathe in, breathe out and say it's okay. You have to make friends with your fear. You cannot run away from fear always. Fear will always be a part of our life and we need to know how to tackle it in a mature manner. So whenever you fear something, sit with yourself for a couple of minutes in a quiet way and talk to your fear. And tell them that it's okay, you know, that let that fear be a friend to you rather than an enemy to you. Use humor to deflate your worst of fears. Humor works best because it helps to crack jokes and your fear actually goes down because of cracking those humorous jokes. Appreciate your courage. It's important to keep patting your back by saying that you are really courageous and you are really good with it. Write down a list of possible techniques and solutions that you think will help you manage your fears and anxieties. Whatever you are fearful about, you need to write down step by step of how you will overcome it. So it is not something which will happen in an instant. You need to constantly work on it every single day to remove the fear of whatever you are fearful about from your life. And it will not go in a day or two. You need to work on it constantly. Do not try to tackle everything at once. When facing an anxiety-producing task, break it into a series of tasks and then tackle it. Because at times you might get hounded by so much of work and fear can come because of it. Try to break down the task. Learn to take one day at a time. Do not rush into things. Gathering the information will help you prevent from relying on these fearful assumptions. So talk to yourself, sit down with yourself and don't assume that fear will go away on its own. You need to let it go away from your life slowly and steadily. Well, to conclude this particular topic on overcoming fear, as I mentioned before, fear is an important part of youth and it will always be there. But how you deal with it is something that will help you turn into a mature young adult which will help you to also develop a personality of positivity. So fear will always be there. It is just how you need to respond to that fear is what will make you or break you as a person. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed listening to it as much as we've enjoyed teaching this to you. Thank you once again.